And before you start there, Tom, if anyone has any questions as we go along, you can throw them into the chat, or at the end, we'll have some time for Q&As too.
All right, so let's get rolling here since we're afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom Frank. I am one of the HVAC product managers here at APR Supply. My market is, I'll just call it the Philly metro market, surrounding the Philadelphia market, Southeast Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware. I've been with the company about 5.5 years, in the industry about 27. So happy to answer any questions you guys have about this transition here with regards to Allied or just in general. I have been through a refrigerant transition before. This one hits a little bit different. It's a little more complicated, but I can guarantee we will most certainly survive it. Good. Not going here. So the question here has to do, or the topic is about A2L refrigerants, category of refrigerants. This is a mandatory change that's been imposed really through regulatory changes in our industry. Allied will be going to the 454B refrigerant. There are two main ones that you're going to see in the marketplace. Of course, we have R410A today, but you will see 454B and 32. Most of the ductless manufacturers will be 32 if they're not already. Most of the unitary brands, not all, but most will be 454B. And some of the ductless brands will be 454B. It all really hovers around a subject called global warming potential that refrigerants fall into, and having a lower global warming potential. The new standard, which is set here, is 700. So both of these refrigerants fall underneath that. 454B has a GWP of 466, so it's lower than 32, which is 675. So I like to think of 454B as being more environmentally friendly. So if you're out there selling products and you're selling a brand like Allied that uses 454B, you can feel good at night knowing as you go to sleep and resting your head on your pillow that you're doing good for the environment with the lower global warming potential refrigerant. This just is a quick slide on the HFC phase down. If you saw this before with 22 to 410A, not wildly different. There are some changes, but the manufacturers of equipment, if you're looking at this timeline, right here, 2025, which is really just a few weeks away, this is the date that manufacturers have to stop making equipment that use 410A. We'll talk about the sell-through periods here, but long and short of it is the refrigerant itself will be available long into the future, 410A, but manufacturers have to stop making stuff that use it and move to new GWP, lower GWP refrigerants moving forward. This slide here is right out of Allied's, one of their pieces of literature. Just talks about the phase outs, cost impacts, what's going to happen to the cost of R410A as time moves forward. Likely will go up. We actually believed we would see that much faster than we did. In fact, 410A went down for a while just due to some surplus of refrigerant in the marketplace. But, sure as shooting, it'll go up over time as a refrigerant. Sell-through, which is different than in the past and important to understand. If you were to chunk up the products that we sell today into 3 different categories, one is as a product, meaning it's completely sealed, delivered from the factory, assembled. Best way to think of that, it would be residential package units, commercial rooftops, window air conditioners, refrigerators. Those products actually have a 3-year sell-through period, meaning, once this year is over, 2024, if you can find them in the marketplace and they're available through distribution, you can install those types of products with 410A for 3 years. A system, which is very common in our marketplace, you could think of that as a system that is built of components, an outdoor unit, coil, air handler. You're assembling it in the field, if you will. There is only a 1-year sell-through after this year. This makes, which is different than R22 to 410A, makes it very difficult for product planning, inventory, because we have to plan enough, have enough to satisfy customer demand. However, there's only 1 year to sell through it. So I bring too much in, you stock some as a contractor, and then a year goes by here and we're sitting on a whole pile of it. It's the most expensive boat anchor you're ever going to buy. So the timing of this has been very tricky, but we have a good team of people working on it. Repair components will be available really for a long time. So components that you need, compressors, coils, even air handlers in some existing scenarios, you might be able to find repair components for a long, long time for 410A. So if you're selling a 410A system today, know that you will have adequate access to parts for at least as long as the warranty period, which is typically 10 years. Parts, tools, and testings. Of course, you're going to need some new tools as we move into these new refrigerants. Make sure if you're buying new tools that you are buying tools that are compliant with A2L refrigerants. When you think of how you install a system today as 410A versus 454B, when you look at this chart, you'll really see the only thing that's really different about these new refrigerants is, again, a regulatory change that's going to require a refrigerant detection system, okay? Which is, think about like a leak sensor, something that has the ability to detect a leak and shut the system off, run the indoor fan. We'll talk more about that. That's the major difference there. Pressures, temperatures, glides are all very similar. The installation time to install one versus another isn't really any different. Brazing, really isn't any different. In fact, you might start moving to refrigerant press moving forward. But nothing really different there, nothing to be wildly afraid of. So with all the manufacturers, you're going to hear these lots of different terms. We're calling this a refrigerant detector sensor or a control. These are the devices that actually sense if a leak should ever occur in the system and how the system should act afterwards. Allied has taken an approach to transition to these new refrigerants by having some product that may come shipped as 410A, but are actually field convertible to R454B. And to do that, you might need some extra accessories initially until the product becomes completely dedicated to these new refrigerants later down the timeline. So just a brief kind of look at what those things are. These are pictures here. These are some different scenarios of when you might need both or one of these components. So we will get more into the terminology of the equipment here, but Allied, you'll many times see a -01 that might represent a unit or component that is shipped for 410A, but is convertible to 454B. So this is the most likely scenarios that you'll see right out of the gate of, I have the condensing units in stock, you're ready to install it, you buy a coil that is convertible, and you will likely need both of these components here, the sensor and the control that makes it all work. Later down the timeline, we will have some furnaces that have the control built into them. Not now, but later. So you might only need a sensor to make that flex coil work. Air handlers that we are currently bringing in right now are a -01, or they're flex. So they can be converted to 454B. They do not have the control integrated into it. You would need both. Should you have a coil as they become available that has the sensor built into it, it's a -71 coil. That you don't need a sensor, but you might need the control to make it all work. So a handy chart here. These are available through Allied. This presentation will be available as a PDF if you'd like a copy of it later. But it has all the part numbers of all the different things. If you're an HVAC contractor, our goal is to make this as transparent to you as possible and provide you everything you need to make that system work. We will work internally to make sure that that happens. but just a good education so you know what these things are. Moving on. If you look at a timeline of Allied brand of products and when stuff is phasing out and phasing in, this is a good one. This timeline, this is the most recent one I have. It's showing here October, November. You could just march that forward a little bit. But you can kind of see where we're at. We placed our last order for 410A quite some time ago, back in June, if I remember correctly. But they started shipping these multi-refrigerant coils back in May. Air handlers started to ship back in June. These sensors and controls, we've already taken some inventory of. We actually have some inventory now of 13 and 14 SEER2 air conditioners in the new refrigerant. We're starting to order some of these new ones, and then you can see we're really right on that cusp of things getting very interesting very quick. Later down the timeline, you'll see the furnaces. Not a major change there other than the control board. You'll still have the same models. We'll go over that transition there. Know that internally here at APR, we have some great resources for our teammates to understand old models to new models. There are product roadmaps available through the manufacturer. This actually helps us to keep an eye on and a layer of accountability within the company, that we're acting as one team to basically make sure that we have adequate. This is not a current snapshot, just so you're aware. This is I did this probably about a month ago, but you get the idea of old model to new model, how many are available, how many are on purchase order, just to make sure that as we're throttling back on some of these old models, that we have an adequate supply of new models on order. This is not available to our customers, but we use this internally. Great resource. And we have this for all of our brands. So stocking strategy, last orders for 410A were already placed. The goal was basically to have enough product to get us past the timeline that we were just looking at of transition for each product, plus a buffer, about 6 weeks. Maybe a little bit more than that. But if you've been working with a manufacturer for any length of time, I most certainly have, you know that sometimes you got to take the timeline that they tell you and add a solid month or two or maybe a quarter onto that. They're holding very close to their timeline, which is good, but we put about a 6-week buffer on there. Our flagship brands, Aries and Armstrong, our goal is really to not delay that transition. Of course, we have to be very careful about how much excess 410A we bring in so we don't get stuck with it. So our goal there is really to transition to 454 as it becomes available. Concord, which is our value line of Allied products, the goal there is really to not just transition there, but actually to have extra inventory, be last distributor standing, if you will, in air conditioners and heat pumps, entry level, and their match components. Our goal is to have enough to hopefully get us in those products to June of 2025. So, if you're a contractor and you're out there and you're hanging on to it for dear life, man, you just do not want to transition to the new refrigerants. We should have adequate supply of Concord brand equipment to get us, really till what we think is June. It could change, but I think we got that planned out pretty good. So the 01 versus -71, this is something you will see in Allied literature. This is really to indicate here some Allied products will come shipped as 410A, but are convertible to 454B. You will see a suffix at the end of that nomenclature with a -01. They will require accessories like we just discussed there and looked at to convert them to 454B. That might be a sensor, that might be a control board, that will most certainly be a TXV, a different TXV. Some products, though, which are really just starting to become available through the manufacturer, will come shipped and dedicated for 454B. And those will carry a -71 suffix in there. That's those numbers, the 01 and -71, and you don't have to shoot the messenger here. that may not always be clear on the packaging, at least on the box, on the outside of the box. You may have to look for 410A or 454B. But it is in that nomenclature, it just may not be crystal clear on the box. Within our system, we're doing our best to make sure that the order department writes it up properly. We have all barcodes on our equipment. It'll be scanned. Nothing should leave the door that is incorrect. When you look at the nomenclature here, very similar to what you might be used to. This is a snapshot of a coil. You'll see the number 7 used very widely to indicate 454B. The only confusing part is even some of the flex coils, which may come shipped as 410A, will also start with a 7. It's just that suffix at the end, the 01 or 71, that's your true indicator there of, what did it come shipped for. But 7 is the indicator in the Allied world that the unit is at least shipped for or compatible with 454B. You will see in the coils upflow, horizontal, downflow, multi-position, various tonnages, widths, and then really everything moving forward is an expansion valve. So if you were hoping and keeping your fingers crossed that pistons would somehow stay in the world of HVAC, think again, it is really moving all to TXV at this point. This is a picture of our product roadmap, which is available as a PDF from Allied. Happy to get anyone copies that they would like, that shows the old coils to the new. Takeaways here, really looking at this, is everything that existed before will exist in the future. There's not an incredible amount of change here. The two ones that are just worth pointing out might be the horizontal coils are going to be factory installed TXV, where they were field installed in the past. Okay, and you can see here this -01 to -71, that's the currently shipping flex coils, if you will, and then eventually they will become dedicated to 454B and downflow coils as well. Multi-position coil, you're probably wondering, is that in the future? There hasn't been any major announcement to that, but I suspect that is a product we will see again. Air handlers, nomenclature review here, starts with a 7. Same story there, 454B. You will see some -01s versus -71s. Electric furnaces will still be available. We do have some air handlers that are 2-piece in design. If you're not familiar with that, they used to be the BCE 7 series, but they will now be the 7AH2s, and that 1 versus a 2 is 2-piece versus single-piece. Good product. They will be available in PSC, constant torque ECM, and variable speed ECM. Nice option, still having PSC available. Not every manufacturer does that. Some have gone exclusively to ECMs. And then we've got our capacities, voltages, TXVs as standard. And then most will be 24 volt, but some that we sell more than I knew. I was told that after the last presentation. But we do have some that are what they call comfort sync enabled, and they're very good, usually on the higher efficiency systems. They are compatible with the A2 or A3 communicating control. So if you are somebody that likes the idea of a communicating system, plug and play, we do have some air handlers that are comfort sync enabled. They can be 24 volt, but they have the ability to be part of a communicating system. If we're looking at the air handler roadmap, here's a very simple snapshot. Here are all the BCE 5 series that are a very strong part of the product family. You can see the bridge here, if you will, with the -01s. We're currently stocking, selling these, inventorying them. And then as time marches forward, they will be dedicated 454B models already with the control already factory installed and the sensor already factory installed. Okay. for now, if you are really itching to install a new 454B product, you would need the kits to make that happen and a TXP. Just quickly here, this slide's not correct. It does say constant torque motor on this C model. That's just a typo. It's still available as PSE. These are the two-piece models that you would know as the BCE 7s. Don't confuse that 7 with 454B. That's old nomenclature. But you would see the new models here as you go forward. One is available as a bridge in the constant torque ECM. The communicating capable unit here will only be available as the current BCE 7S or as the new 7H2 model. That's a typo there too. This will be an AV. Disregard that. And then the electric furnace or the modular air handler. There are a picture of it. You can think of that as the top section of an air handler. We do stock that. That's nice for attic installations where space is an issue. They come in various widths, just like the coils. Good to know that will continue to exist in the family. Not on this slide, but are the apartment style air handlers, the BWCs. They will also transition to the new refrigerants. Outdoor units, air conditioner and heat pump nomenclature. If you are a flagship brand, you will see the A here for Aries. You will see the 7 for the change in refrigerant, air conditioner versus heat pump. We will have some product that is cold climate heat pump capable, which is nice and is a factor when you get into certain markets and utility rebates, tax credits, things like that. A true solid, strong performing heat pump, which will be a welcome addition to the family. You will see change in nomenclature. The old nomenclature, which is confusing for many, 16, 17, 18, 22, that all really was geared around what efficiency could you get up to. And the feedback from the contractors as they went through this change was that people felt like they were being sold equipment that was above the minimum efficiencies many times. So love it or hate that strategy. The new strategy will be base level stuff. The nomenclature will reflect the minimum efficiency, and then the higher end product, like the inverters, will have more of an up to strategy in that nomenclature. I can assure you from looking at the ratings from what I've seen already, that very little has changed. In fact, there might be some upgrades to efficiency, but know that nomenclature might be a little confusing at first. Of what you might used to know as a 16, it may now be known as a 13. This is the product roadmap, just to kind of take a peek. This is looking at 410A versus 454B. This is Aries flagship brand. If the 23 SEER will be a 22 in the new refrigerant, very similar type of a product. The 18 that we know as the Lynx in the Conquer world, but as the 18 in the Aries world, will be available as a 19 SEER, little upgrade in efficiency. The 17, which is our minimum threshold in the South or Delaware for us and Maryland, will now be the A7 AC14. So you can see that change there, going from a 17 to a 14. And then the 16, which is the minimum efficiency in the North, will now go to a 13. Heat pumps, very similar. You know, if it existed before, it exists now. This is where you'll see the upgrade to the new modulating heat pump will actually be cold climate capable. Some differences in the cabinet, which we'll show here in a few minutes. Some really nice upgrades actually to that cabinet. But if you saw it before, you'll see it again. And here's where you'll see that entry level series or essential series, they're calling it, where you see the nomenclature change to that minimum threshold of 14 here. Don't worry, nothing really changed. You know, you can just see the strategy. This was up to 17 SEER versus 14.3 SEER 2 and up. So just getting with the new times, the new SEER2 ratings, getting modern. Concord, very, very similar, which is the value line. The air handlers that we went over, just so you're aware, if you didn't know this before, but the air handlers are actually the same nomenclature, whether they are Aries or Concord. So they're the same SKU, same strategy, nothing changed there. The Concord outdoor models, here you go again, you got the 7, that's a 454B, AC versus heat pump, minimum efficiencies versus up to efficiencies, fixed speed, single stage, and then we've got, of course, a very nice offering of variable speed product, even in Concord. The tonnages and controls. Really everything in the Concord world is 24, no communicating offerings there. Skinnier lineup than Aries, but you get the idea here. You've got modulating product. This is actually a heat pump, but they do list it in the air conditioner family as well. You get the heat for free, that's what I tell people. And then you've got your single stage product air conditioners, the 17s to the 14s, the 16s to the 13s. And then on the heat pumps, you'll see the change over there, just model nomenclature change. No major new additions, just model number upgrades and refrigerant upgrades. Gas furnaces, don't need to dwell on this too much. There's really not any major change. The major takeaway here on the nomenclature is that on the new models, as they become available in 2025, we'll have a K at the end. And that just means that that control, or the ability for the sensor to integrate into the furnace control, will already be built into that furnace. No major changes, no major surprises there. A really, really strong furnace offering. With Aries, the only thing you see here is the K. That's the major change there. Same thing for the 80%ers. Concord, I spelled it wrong, Concord. It's Concord. Same thing there. There'll be a K at the end as those become available. Don't sweat that yet. That's really a 2025 thing. Again, still great product offerings here in Concord. We have probably more tax credit qualifying furnaces than any other brands in the marketplace. We've got the modulatings, of course, 98% in the Aries, 2 different 97%ers in the Aries. We've got 2 different 97%ers in the Concord. Very strong, great product going into the heating season. Good to know. It's a $600 federal tax credit, and there are quite a few utility rebates that would add onto that as well. Same thing on the 80%ers. We don't stock all of these models of 80%ers. As you can imagine, with all the incentives, most of the market has gone to condensing. It's the bulk of what we stock, but we do stock 80% gas furnaces in a constant torque. And we do actually have some 2-stage constant torque 80%ers as well, too. Low NOx requirements are really probably more of a California thing that hasn't made its way to the East Coast, thank God. Electric heats, strategy there is a good strategy. The air handler is probably looking at from the pictures, you'd say, hey, did anything really change? They really look the same. And, for the most part, they are very, very similar dimensions. Not a lot of wild change there. The electric heat kits have had an upgrade to them. In fact, if you're buying electric heat kits from us today, you'd probably notice that the models have already changed. And the good news with that is most of these electric heat packs today, not only can they be used in the new air handlers and they'll fit in just fine, but they can also be used backwards. They are backwards compatible. The only exception to that is going to be the electric heat kit and what we knew as the BCE 7S. That is the communicating capable variable speed 2-piece air handler. That one is very specific. That's the only one that is a little tricky, where the 7S requires that old heat kit, and the new variable speed communicating capable air handler not even available yet. but that will require its own separate electric heat pack. So takeaways quickly on the electric heats are the ECB 45s, those are the new ones. They are backwards compatible with the old BCE 5. So they will work in the new 7AH1s. They will work in the old BCE 5s. Very simple. The ECB 47s are now backwards compatible with the old BCE 7Es. So another one with backwards compatibility. The only one that's really tricky is that BCE 7S and that new communicating capable. They require specific kits, so be careful. I already showed this slide just as an introduction. I'm just bringing it up again just to hammer that home, that as we begin to bridge into these new refrigerants with the Allied brand of products, there are times when you are going to need a sensor and a control, sometimes just a sensor, sometimes maybe just a control. We will do our very best internally to make sure that you get the required components that you need. But this is just for education purposes. This chart is available. So, and this, we will use this chart religiously, I'm sure, as we get more into that. This is a tree, again, probably more of an internal thing that will help us to understand, hey, I've got a new air handler installation. Well, you know, how are you using it? Is it a dedicated 454B air handler application, or is it a multi-refrigerant air handler? And how am I going to apply it, with 454 or with 410A? And okay, you know, you don't need to do anything. You're good for 410A. Well, I want to make it 454B. Okay, you're going to need this kit, you're going to need this board, and you're going to need some sort of TXV depending on your application. Same thing with the coil. Bit of an eye chart, and it might look confusing, and you know, I won't lie, it's a little confusing, but we got this. TXV kits are fairly simple. You know, there will really be 3 different TXVs depending on the tonnage that will supply for 454B applications when we are shipping the -01 coils or air handlers. This is a real world example that I thought would be worth just looking at, giving you actual model nomenclature. If I were to sell a new 454B condensing unit, which I do have in stock right now, and somebody wants to go ahead and move to that new refrigerant, God bless them. We have a coil that's in stock today with the -01. Okay, it is the flex coil. It can be for 410A or 454B. It does come factory shipped for 410A. I am going to need to give our customer the field kit, which is the control board, this 27A05, specifically for this application with a furnace. And I am going to give them the coil sensor conversion kit. And we'll show you where that gets located, but that'll get located in that coil right down here in the bottom corner, I think is where that goes on a bracket. And then least but not last, well, actually it is last, we would need the TXV kit as well too. And there's a picture of what that looks like. Bolt on, nothing crazy. Take the old one off, keep it in your truck stock maybe, and put the new one on. This is kind of a picture of how that might all work. And you can see here the thermostat would get wired to the control. The outdoor unit would get wired to the control. And then the sensor would get wired to the control also. So a lot of wiring to this control outside of the cabinet, and then some wires would go down to the furnace. So you might be wondering, well, what happens if there's a leak? And this is the simple answer to that question is the system will turn off. The blower will turn on to circulate and dilute the concentration of that refrigerant leak. Okay, and then once the system has determined that it has reached below the threshold of acceptability, it will allow the system to run again. That control board will have some lights on it that will tell you whether it's running normally, it's flashing green, to say it's turning on. Blue would be an indicator that the system, even though maybe it has passed, went through mitigation. Okay. If it was flashing blue, mitigation meaning it sensed a leak, it shut it off, and then it ran the fan, and then it brought it back on again. So you come back on a service call or maintenance visit, and you see that that control has a blue light on it, you know that it went through a mitigation. Now, was that just something silly at startup and there was some refrigerant just kind of floating around in there somehow and it picked it up? Possibly. Red would be an indicator of some sort of specific fault, probably a control board problem. Replace a control board. People were asking me all the time, why are the coils so big? And in fact, with the new refrigerant change, the coils really are the same dimensions. But I'll use it as a time to insert a joke here to break up the monotony. And the reason why the coils are so big is because they're running out of room for all the stickers. So this is a case of a coil that was converted to 454B. The reality of it is the coils are not any bigger than they were in the new coils. But this is just an example of what that would look like by the time you get done putting all the stickers on there. There's no more coil, it's all stickers. So get ready for that. This shows boots, which will be something that you'll see in the future that will come with product when you convert it. And the intention of the boot is to also cover up where you may be doing your braze or press connections so that if you had a leak, it would funnel that refrigerant back into the coil cabinet. Okay, kind of a neat thing. This is just a close-up picture of what that sensor looks like. This is a picture of what the board looks like. So here's all your landing terminals for your thermostat and your condenser. This here is where you would plug your sensor into. There is a second sensor capability. Some local municipalities, it's hard to know yet, might require that you install a second sensor to detect refrigerant in the mechanical room. Okay, there is provisions there for that just in case. And then the indoor unit terminals there as well. Just a quick plug and a reminder, as we move into those new equipment and new models, Allied does have a really wonderful communicated control. It's really kind of the window into the system. It is really in the Aries world only, not Concord. Sorry, Concord people. But it is a wonderful user interface. There are a lot of capabilities of this control. Wi-Fi is built in, plug and play capability, advanced troubleshooting, just a lot of really neat things is available and will continue to be available. Probably one of the best ones on the market, in my opinion, but not for everybody. Some other changes that you're going to see in the product lineup, just a couple of pictures here that are neat. You're going to see longer stub outs for press connections. So if you're somebody that's already doing this, you'll know that sometimes you're cutting that bell end off and you are close, man. You are real close to that valve. And, I don't know about you, but I'd be crazy nervous. So you're going to have longer stub outs on the new equipment. That will make it easier to cut off the bell end. And if you so choose, go ahead and press away. Despite the change in nomenclature, ratings are still very strong. I've looked at a lot of those combinations here recently, and there's going to be some still nice ability to hit rebates, local rebates, and tax credits, 25C. Pro Series, some changes on some of those condensers. While none of these units have been officially released yet, you can expect to, I know at least the cold climate heat pump, when that becomes available, it's going to have a composite top and a composite base. A very, very nice looking unit, a wonderful upgrade to the high-end products there. Again, that high-end heat pump is going to be cold climate rated. You will see, I don't have a picture of it, I just learned this from a factory tour not too long ago, that the variable speed blower modules have historically always been mounted on the end of the motor. That in the future, as the new furnace models get rolled out, you're going to see that module be located closer to where the control board is. So that'll get that a little bit easier for service access if you ever had to change it out. Really a pretty cool transition there. And then screw-in terminals versus wire nuts, it's mostly the air handlers. You'll see some changes there. All good changes. Moving on to Magic Pack, which is a product of the Allied families. Just a few slides really on this. What's changing? When you look at it, there's not really at face value a lot of major changes. There will be options for mitigation controls, but not necessarily required. You need that mitigation control, that RDS, when you have, I believe it's more than 4.1 pounds of refrigerant in the system. And ductless systems, small package units like these Magic Pack, don't have that. They many times have less than that. So they are not required to have that mitigation control, which is great. Some res pack units might be the same way. If you're looking at the nomenclature, it'll be very similar to what you may know and love already, with the exception of the 7. So that magic number 7, lucky number 7, you can play the numbers tonight. That will reflect the change in refrigerant. This is the M series, which is probably the newer of the two series of Magic Pack systems. Again, nothing major there, but you will see that 7. I'm trying to remember why I put this slide in there. I think this has to do with the sell-through of the equipment. If you are in that subject of products versus systems versus components, and how long that they will be available and sellable. Components, when you think of repair components, they can be sold and built indefinitely. TXVs, you're going to be able to get them. Coils, you're going to be able to get them. No issues there. Nothing that should stop you from selling 410A today. When you think of a 410A system, which is comprised of outdoor units, coils, things like that, there is really only a 1-year sell-through. Ducted, ductless, that everything there that requires you to build that system in the field, that only has a 1-year sell-through after this year. But products that are signed, sealed, and delivered from the factory already put together have a 3-year sell-through, should you be able to find them in the marketplace. Again, manufacturers have to stop making stuff that use it at the end of this year. I think I already addressed that, but in the case of a Magic Pack, just for what it's worth, which are really a product, that's a 3-year sell-through, but also know that chassis may still be available, and since they are a sealed refrigerant circuit, as long as you can find them and the manufacturer has them in stock, you could continue to sell them for 3 years if you can find them. Nomenclature, again, with the 7 and a Magic Pack, this is a gas pack unit. Also a gas pack unit, higher efficiency, 90 plus. Nice to know that we have that. That's also a 7 in the nomenclature. Timeline of Magic Pack, this is really kind of already happened, and they're starting to manufacture these new refrigerant products really as we speak. This slide here is just to let you know, not really a lot of communication out there on this yet. This is a very recent thing. This is about the 25C tax credit, which affects most of the residential equipment that we sell in our marketplace. the summary of this slide here is those standards are changing. A brief description of what those standards look like is that the SEER 2s and EER 2s have been elevated. If you remember the Tax 25C, it's the highest tier of CEE without it being the advanced tier. So in this case, you know, we're going from 16 SEER 2, 12 EER 2, which was the current standard, very hard to get to, just is going up by another SEER 2 point. Gas furnaces remain unchanged. Heat pumps in our market are changing from north and south to path A to path B. I'm reluctant to really describe what that looks like because I don't really have a complete understanding of it myself yet, but you can see the difference just like north and south. One has a higher EER than the other, but the other has a higher HSPF than the other. So, you know, you're trading is if this one has a higher heating efficiency, maybe we allow a lower cooling efficiency and vice versa. But you will notice here that what used to be 15.2 is going up to 16. So regardless of path A or path B, this change really knocks out a lot of currently qualifying stuff. What you'll see is probably more sales towards inverter product. I think you'll see a greater shift from ACs to heat pumps because the inverter heat pumps will have an easier time getting it. Gas furnaces, just for what it's worth, that still remains at 97%. A very strong product position in Allied with 97%. In fact, you might find yourself or homeowners just not even trying to get air conditioner tax credits anymore and more focused on the gas furnace tax credit. You are in a wonderful spot there. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. We are actually early. I think at this time, Susie, I don't know if you can open it up for questions or not. Are there any questions out there from anybody either in the chat or that's feeling brave enough to unmute themselves?
Yeah, we don't have any in the chat that anyone added. So if anyone wants to mute themselves and jump in, you are welcome to.
I have a quick product question as far as inventory. There's a helicopter in the background. That's nice. Concord 10 kW electric heat kits. The last month or two, it seems like we've been scraping bottom, trying to find inventory on those. And I don't know if there's a new part number, like if the new heat kit is available and I need to be using those. Is that something you know of offhand?
Yeah, I don't know who's talking there, whether it's an APR person or a customer, because I guess it's the screen that I have. But let me see if I can stop sharing here.
I'm an installer, HVAC.
Okay. That is possible that somebody is just not looking at the correct electric heat kit number and the substitute. If you were ordering online as an example, and you were ordering the old part number,
Sure.
You would need to know what that new part number is. And it should list online ordering. I don't know if the substitute pops up. Internally in our own system, it should pop up as a substitute for sure.
Okay, so there's no shortage of them as far as you're aware?
Not that I'm aware. Mm-mm.
Okay, that's great. That's my only question at this point.
Cool. Any other questions from anybody else?
Jim Todd.
Hey, Jim Todd.
Question for you. So now that they can press off of the swedge, is there a line that says, hey, like to let them know that you can start pressing right here on the swedge, or?
Well, they won't actually press on the swedge. They'll cut it off. So the refrigerant lines will be long enough.
That being said, is there still like a line for them to say that this is where they start, or is it going to kind of be each person to kind of guesstimate it on their own?
So those requirements also are mandated by the refrigerant press manufacturer for the fitting. So every manufacturer, we sell Maxi Pro, which I think is the best product out there. Everybody should use it. But there are some other products out there, and MaxiPro might require an inch, if you will, and they have their own guide that you would insert over the meat of that stub out, and you would mark it with your own marker. So as you insert this is from what I remember of the training for MaxiPro, but as you insert it in there, you insert it all the way to that marker line, and then you press, and you do that to make sure that it's on far enough, and to make sure that as you're pressing, it hasn't walked itself off. So it's kind of my weird way of walking around that question by saying I think you have to, that's dependent on the manufacturer of the press fitting. But the manufacturer of the equipment, as far as they're concerned, I think they're kind of indifferent to press versus braze. Most of them would tell you they would prefer that you braze. But they have, moving forward here, have moved to modern times and said, well, everybody seems to be pressing, so we might as well give them what they want, which is enough meat on that, on the bone there to cut it off and still have enough to press. Does that answer the question? Or dodge it?
No, it answers it, and I'll make sure I get them the correct information. I just want to set them up for success.
Amen, brother. Anybody else got anything good?
Hey, Tom, Ron Leary over here in Greensburg.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Good.
Good. I have a quick question. Is there going to be internal pop-ups that suggest like the RDS stuff like that, and just to help get the right part like there is now?
I suspect there will. The answer to your question is there is not currently, not with that specific component yet, but that is on my list of things to get ironed out. I'll give you an example, like if you select an R454B condense, I guess we have to decide where we want that to pop up. Does it pop up on the condensing unit? Does it pop up on the coil or the air handler or something else? But I guarantee you there will be something to help you with that other than these charts that will most inevitably get lost in backpacks and briefcases and end up with McDonald's wrappers in the trash can.
Okay, thank you.
So not yet, but yes, and that's a great question. Anybody else? Well, I think we've used up a good amount of time, and appreciate everybody for logging in here and learning more and setting yourself up, NAPR, and your company for success.
And if you registered for the class, you will get the recording emailed to you. Also, we put all the recordings on our YouTube channel, so you can get them there. And we have another Allied coming up in December, another Allied webinar. So you can get the next round of updates then, and that's available at aprsupply.com. You can register for that class. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.